What up, sports fans? Waxon Wednesday, Jake Waxman, Tyler Levelette, two guys talk sports. Let's rock and roll tonight. All right, I'm gonna focus on one final reflection of this NCAA tournament. That's gonna be the focus of this entire Waxon Wednesday. All about the NCAA tournament before we go forward with other sports. Anything else I'll have to discuss, I will discuss in the Friday podcast this upcoming Friday. Which means, you see this right here? Yes, I plan to tear this up, but not tonight. This Friday, then I'll rip it up for you. Alright, so anyway, we're going to start with, we're going to focus on the Final Four. I will say this, okay? The four best teams all season long made it to the Final Four this year. It's a very rare thing to see across all of college athletics. Four best teams in the Final Four, without a doubt. So, honestly, very good Final Four. Hopefully, we don't get too many Final Fours in the future where it's all number one seeds. All right, we don't want this to happen every single time. We want this to be a rare thing. All right, I don't mind every 10 or 12 Final Fours. It's all one seeds in the Final Four. So we just want to have some variety. All right, and hopefully this isn't a bad. This Final Four was not an omen of things to come, where it's either all number one or all number two seeds that get to the Final Four every year. So, anyway, without further ado, all right. So I'm going to start with two of the Final Four teams, Auburn and Duke. So with Auburn, tremendous season. Absolutely, early on the season, going into January, they look like the team to beat. At first, I kind of thought they were the team to beat. They looked like they were going to win it all. They had built the best resume, no question. I just think the problem with Auburn was I think they may have peaked too early. In fact, they definitely peaked just a bit too early. And I will say this, still a tremendous season. They got to the Final Four, which is a huge accomplishment. Hey, anytime, if you're a basketball program who's had a really great season, anytime you get to the Final Four or even get to the national championship, your season's not a failure, all right? You get at least to the Final Four, you can call it a great season. Just because you don't win the national championship does not make you a failure, all right? And same with this Auburn team. Give them some respect. Probably the best Auburn team we've ever seen. Really good basketball team. Unfortunately, there was just one other team in their conference who was just better when it mattered, and that was Florida. Great game between both Auburn and Florida. They duked it out. Auburn controlled most of that game. But Florida, they just stuck with their game plan, stuck to their guns, and they made the plays when it mattered in the end. And Auburn, just a few too many mistakes in order to finish off Florida, or at least win the game in the end. And that's why Florida went on to the national championship and Auburn went home. But still, Auburn fans, you got nothing to hold your heads down about. Great season. Great run to the Final Four. That absolute dream season for Auburn. Even though they didn't win the championship, they still made the Final Four, beat a lot of great teams, had a great resume. Sometimes, just in the end, there's a team that's better. And that Florida team, it was a great game between Auburn and Florida, but that Florida team was just better than Auburn when it mattered most. It's as simple as that. Auburn, I would say a lot of people said they peaked too early, and that might be true. I'm not sure if they really did peak too early, as much as they just finally ran into an SEC opponent that was a stronger team than they were. So, simple as that. And what Florida achieved this season was just absolutely incredible, and we'll get more into that. So, good run for Auburn. Nothing to be disappointed about. Okay, season's not a failure for Auburn. Actually, it's one that Auburn fans should remember for a long time to come. Sure, they didn't get to the national championship or win it, but still accomplished a lot. Hey, you got to San Antonio. You got to your second Final Four. Huge, huge accomplishment. No question. And then there's Duke. And you know what? Like Auburn, Duke doesn't have too much to be disappointed about either, okay? They won their region, got to the Final Four. Like I said, getting to the Final Four is a huge accomplishment. The one thing they do have to be disappointed in, okay, they lost to Houston. And you know what? It's the matter that they lost to Houston in. That's disappointing. That's the thing that everybody is giving Duke grief about. And, and that's the thing that you Duke fans are just feeling really ashamed or maybe embarrassed about in a way. Because it was a great season for Duke. Getting to the Final Four, as I said, no small thing. But it's going to be overshadowed by the fact that not only were there championship expectations for Duke this season, and they had guys like Cooper Flag, but the way they lost in the Final Four to Houston, gut-wrenching. And here's the thing, Duke, their offense was rolling for most of the game, but in the final 10:30 of the game, final 10 minutes and 30 seconds of that game between them and Houston, one field goal for Duke. If you only score one field goal in the final 10 minutes and 30 seconds, you are going to lose 100% of the time. Unless you're up like by 40, you're going to lose 100% of the time. And Houston, they capitalized on it. They made the plays when it mattered, and they rallied. They showed how tough they were, and in the end, they were tougher than Duke. They forced Duke into some errors. Here's the thing. I thought that game the momentum of that game really changed when Mason Gillis committed that technical foul. And I love Mason Gillis. He's a Purdue Boilermaker, transferred to Duke for his final year of eligibility for college basketball. But, damn, that is a tough technical to commit. Like, he actually got his arm, when the ball went in the hoop, he got his arm and it went into one of the Cougars' faces, into the face of a Cougar who was looking for the rebound just in case. But, those tough technical, and it ended up turning the tables, changed the momentum of the whole game. Like, the momentum at that point was all with Duke, and it was looking like Duke was going to run away with this game and make it to the national championship and take on Florida. It flipped the tables. The momentum then switched from Duke to Houston. And Houston, they took that momentum and they did not look back. They ran away with it. And they were able to rally and complete the comeback and earn a hard-earned win against Duke. So, that's a tough one to swallow if you're Duke, because they really did have a great season. But it's going to be overshadowed by the way that things ended up in the Final Four. Losing a game like that where you blow. Like, they had a 13-point lead at one point. They were looking good, and they blew it. One field goal in the last 10 minutes and 30 seconds. Damn. Goodness. That's just awful. I think the biggest... Yep, we talk about Mason Gillis' mistake, but I think it was number 14 for Duke. Wish I could remember names better. Houston did a good job on defending number 14 of Duke to the point where he made two errors and had turnovers that went out of bounds went off of him, and Houston got the basketball and scored off of those turnovers. Like, literally, like, he was dribbling the ball and he dribbled it off his knee and out of bounds it went. Twice I saw that happen. So that's a tough way to lose a game. There's that, and also Duke's offense got stagnated and they kept trying to. They lost that confidence even when they were up, 7 points, you could just tell that offense was way too tight in the end. And they were feeding it too much. Like, they were waiting for Cooper Flag to bail them out. You can't, Cooper Flag, great player. He's going to do well in the NBA. Whether he decides to go now or decides to come back to Duke for another year. But you know what? You can't rely on your best players all the time to make plays for you. People got to step up. Duke had plenty of shooters, plenty of guys who can make plays and create their own shots. In those final minutes of the game, nobody was willing to do that besides Cooper Flag. And anyone else who tried to make a shot didn't make a shot. And that Houston capitalized on that and hit some big threes in the end and eventually took the lead and just never looked back. So, tough losses. It's a really tough loss for Duke. And just, wow. Whew. Yeah, I remember just watching the game. You guys saw my reaction. I was just laughing my butt off about it. Like, I just could not believe what happened. After that game, I was just like, WTF. What the F actually happened? Did Duke just blow it? Like, you just don't expect a team like Duke to just lose like that. But, hey, that's what happened. They blew it. Because Duke got away from what made them dangerous. Their offense was dangerous in this tournament because they just kept attacking, They just kept going they kept driving, attacking with full speed. They got away from that in the final minutes. They tightened up way too much, and it costed them. And they were trying to one could make the case they were trying to coast in the end, but Duke, way too tight in the end on offense. And Houston, they rolled up the pressure and intensity on defense and tighten up, forced Duke to tighten up some more as well. So credit to Houston, but damn, Duke. Just damn. And also, on one final note, some people will say that Duke was used to blowing people out all season long, and that you could make a case that may have been a part of their experience in this season that may have came back to bite them because they were so used to blowing all their opponents out that they weren't used to playing in close games or weren't as comfortable playing in comfortable games they weren't as comfortable playing in tight games as Houston was. A lot of that also comes down to experience. Houston was well more experienced in playing in tight games or from behind. So, simple as that. So, kudos, though, nevertheless, to Auburn and Duke on fantastic seasons. And now I move on to the national championship, and we'll talk about Houston. It's funny. Houston came from behind to beat Duke. But in the national championship, it was all theirs to lose. That national championship was Houston's to lose. They were dominating that game. They were controlling the pace, doing their thing, like what they had done in the final minutes against Duke. And they just lost it. Just evaporated in the air. Like that on one final play. And I knew that this was going to be a really good game. I thought to myself, okay, if Florida scores 80, they win. If Duke can keep Florida under 70 or even under 60, they're going to win. Or even under, say, 65 for lack of better estimates. But you know what? Houston had Florida right where they wanted them. They were making them uncomfortable throughout the game. They were doing their thing. Houston, they were controlling the pace for plenty of junctures throughout the game. But in those final 5 minutes, their control of the game, it unraveled. And Florida was able to make a rally. And Duke, even with Florida making a rally, they still had a shot to go and at least force this game into overtime. They still had Florida right where they wanted them. Even with Florida taking the lead, I mean, you couldn't say it. If this game had gone into overtime, I think Houston would have won. Because they had Florida in foul trouble at one point. And then it was Houston that was getting into some foul trouble. Some people might have some questions about the officiating in this game, which is fair. I think that overtime would have favored Houston, but they just didn't get there because it came down to the final play. And the final play, I'm not going to lie, WTF. Sir, WTF, what happened? First of all, I want to start by saying this. I feel really bad for Emmanuel Sharp, okay? Feel really terrible for him. Because great basketball player, but he ended up making the mistake that ended up dooming Houston's championship aspirations or their hopes. And I mean, Houston, for as well as they played, that one mistake. And he had the ball last. Like, Cryer got the ball or LJ Cryer, he ends up passing the ball to Emmanuel Sharp. And then what happens next? I'm still trying to figure this. I'm still, to this, almost a week later, still trying to figure out, trying to process what in the Sam heck happened. Like, it looked like he was trying to take a shot, take a 3-point shot, but he hesitated. But on the last second, he was just like he just hesitated, and the ball came out of his hands right there. Like, it was like that, and the ball actually slipped out of Sharp's hands, and it got loose, and Florida was able to dive on it, get on it, and that ended up being the game. Florida wins the national championship on one of the most bizarre last second plays in the game. It wasn't a buzzer beat, didn't come down to a buzzer beater, came down to a defensive stand. It almost kind of reminded me of Super Bowl 49 when Russell Wilson threw that end zone interception to Malcolm Butler. I thought, this is one of the stupidest endings to a Super Bowl I've ever seen. And that's how this game felt. And I feel sorry for Emmanuel Sharp. I do feel sorry for him. But that was one of the stupidest endings to a basketball game I've ever seen. I mean, just to end on a messy play like that where a player who was looking to take a shot but just hesitated at the last minute, and Florida capitalized. Man, oh man, it's so much to comprehend right now. Like, I don't know. I still don't know what to think. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck happened on that play, and maybe that's going to be a mystery. One of the things that I've heard supposedly is that because the ball slipped out of his hand at that moment, Sharp could not get back, could not recover it because that would have been a travel or possibly a double dribble. So from what I'm hearing, he may have been penalized. The ball may have been going the other way if he gets his hands back on it. Then I don't get why someone else didn't try, or why someone else like LJ Cryer didn't come quick enough to get the ball away out of his hand. Although it was a messy possession. I mean, Florida stepped up on defense too in those final minutes, and they were not going to let Houston in the paint so easily. So, but here's the thing. Kelvin Sampson, he said it best in his post-game interview. You got to get a shot up. Regardless of whether or not it's the world's best shot or not, you got to take a shot. You miss 100% of the shots you do not take. Right there, I think everybody was expecting Emmanuel to take the shot. And from what I saw, looking at the replay, there was a guy coming fast at him, and I think he saw that, and there was a defender coming at Emmanuel Sharp incredibly fast. If you watch the replay, there was a guy who was looking in to come in and try to block the shot. And I think Emmanuel Sharp saw him, and that's why it may have been why he hesitated to take the shot and ended up losing the basketball in like a self-inflicted wound type of play where he fumbled the ball on his own. And Florida ends up recovering. So, it's just a brutal way. It was a dumb ending, in my opinion, to what was a great national championship game. No doubt, great game, just not less than ideal finish. But if you're Houston, that's going to sting for years to come. And I hope this doesn't haunt Emmanuel Sharp for the rest of his life. Because he has, like I said, rest of his life ahead of him. And it's a game, all right? But man, and also just tough way to lose a national championship. And for Houston, that's going to hurt for a long time. That's going to haunt Houston until they win a national championship. I wouldn't be surprised if that haunts Houston basketball for a long time to come. You got everything you need. You could home court advantage. You got all the Cougar Nation behind you. You're in San Antonio, which is not too far from Houston. Same state, Texas. You had control of the game, and you lost it in the final seconds, and you lost the game. All because you didn't attempt a game-winning shot. You got to get that ball in the air. No matter what, even if it's contested, shoot the ball. Shoot to kill. Okay? All right, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And again, I feel bad for Emmanuel Sharp. But no matter what, there was about 4 seconds left as he was about to attempt a shot before he hesitated and tried to pull the ball back down, but fumble. But hey, 4 seconds left. Take the shot. All right? I would have rather Houston lost that game attempting a shot and the shot not going in, just bouncing off the rim, than what we saw on Monday night. Just brutal way to lose a game, and a WTF way to lose the game. But nonetheless, I'll give my congrats to Houston on a great run, great season, and you know what? They proved me wrong on a lot of things. So, Houston, kudos. And now, we'll talk about Florida. Man, oh man. And I said this. I like the Florida Gators, but I always said they've been the luckiest team in this NCAA tournament. Well, I will say this. In that national championship, and by the way, congrats to Florida and Gator Nation on their third national championship in college basketball. They have 3 college basketball championships and 3 college football championships. Not bad. Not bad, Florida. It's good stuff. And I will say, they made me eat a lot of crap. A lot of crow. However you want to say. No, they proved me wrong big time. Florida in this game against Houston, even when, things were against them, they proved they're more than lucky. They were great. They rallied when they needed to. They made plays, as they had so many times, just like Texas Tech and Auburn. And then just like against UConn. That was a team that was good enough to play from behind and rally. They had all the talent in the world. They were the athleticism. They're always super focused. They stuck with the game plan and got rewarded for it. So yeah, maybe they were lucky. But you know what? That Florida team, that was a great Florida team. And a team that was way better than I gave them credit for. So kudos to you, Florida. Good job. And when it mattered most, they made the plays. And their defense, you know what? Their defense in this title game, underrated. Absolutely, they played some of the best defense I've seen them play all season long against a great Houston team. And especially on that final play. Part of the reason Houston was kind of in a panic mode in the end was because they couldn't get in the paint. Florida was defending that paint to perfection. So Houston was going to have no choice but to take a shot. And one of the defenders for Florida, I think he spooked Emmanuel Sharp a little bit. He actually kind of spooked him a little because he was coming fast to contest the shot. And I think that spooked Sharp into the mistake that he made. So that's really good defense in that. And I guess psych if we were talking about that. And Walter Clayton, what a performance. Struggled in the first half, but in the second half, that guy was outstanding. And he made plays. He's a big reason why Florida was able to come back and win this game. And Todd Golden, I just got to say, this guy is an incredible coach. He's young, but he's incredible already. And should he decide to continue coaching in Florida, watch out, college basketball. This is the next powerhouse, the Florida Gators. Because Todd Golden, good young coach with many years ahead of him. I hope he stays in the college scene because I honestly think he can do great things, just like Dan Hurley. Okay, so I still think Dan Hurley's the better coach between those two, because Dan Hurley is Dan Hurley, but Todd Golden has a chance to do special things should he decide to stay in Florida. But that Gator team, they're resilient. Sometimes the best teams in the NCAA tournament are the most resilient ones, the ones who can play in any kind of game. They can play from behind no matter the score and come back and win. This Florida team, no matter the depth, no matter how deep the score was or how deep of a hole they tugged themselves, they were able to take themselves out of it. Because they had all the talent in the world and they had a great coach, a great mastermind, and Todd Golden. Absolutely a golden example of great coaching this NCAA tournament. And future's bright for Florida. They got some talented players, even if some of them declare for the draft or some decide to hit the portal. Florida's not going anywhere. Just all comes down to Todd Golden. But with that being said, Florida had the comeback kids. That was the theme for this Florida team. The comeback kids. And they had to come back and rally against a good Houston team. In a way, they kind of gave Houston a taste of their own medicine in the end. Houston loved to be ferocious on defense. Well, Florida was the team that had the ferocity on defense in the end, and that made a huge difference. And yeah, there were some bad calls on both sides in that game, especially against Florida early on in the second half. And the fact that Florida was able to overcome Houston being in the bonus like with 14 minutes left is extraordinary. This was a really fantastic Florida team. They deserve their national championship. And you know what? They deserve more respect from people like me. So I'll try to give them more respect. They were lucky, yes. I'll stand by that. But you know what? They were great enough where luck was just a piece of their NCAA tournament run. And sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. But you know what? This Florida team, they had the pieces, and when they ran, no matter how deep their hole was, they could dig themselves out of it because the players that they had, like Walter Clayton, absolutely phenomenal players, and Alex Condon, absolutely a strong player. And those guys helped rally Florida in the most important game of the year, and they took the lead in the final seconds, and you know what? They played defense. They gave Houston a taste of their own medicine in the end and earned themselves a well-deserved third national championship. So, to Gator Nation, to Florida, Gainesville, and to Todd Golden and his team, I congratulate you on a well-earned national championship. And good. I want to also send a huge kudos to the city of San Antonio for a well-hosted Final Four. And now, on to Indy 2026. That's right, Indianapolis hosting the Final Four in 2026. Can't wait. Hope to see Purdue there. All right, on to this day in sports history. And on this day, the 9th of April, 1950, the 14th U.S. Masters Tournament in Augusta National. Jimmy Demaret becomes the first three-time Masters champion by 2 strokes ahead of the Australian Jim Ferrier. All right, you want a prediction from me, don't you? You want me to make a Masters prediction. All right, I'll give you one. I say it is about time. It is about damn time, and I do mean about damn time, Rory McIlroy wins his first Masters. So that I'm going Rory McIlroy to win it. If he doesn't win it this year, I probably won't pick him again. Oh, man. I'll try to check out some of the Masters when I get a chance. But being that I'm not that much into golf, we'll see how much of it I watch. But you want a prediction on the Masters? I'm going with Rory McIlroy to win the Masters at long last. All right, sports fans, that's all I got for this week's Waxon Wednesday. I'll see you all on Friday for the Friday roundtable. And also, anything you want to say below in this video, please leave a comment down below if you got something to say. Any questions you have, I'll try to answer that in next week's Waxon Wednesday. And with that said, thanks for watching this week's Waxon Wednesday. This is Jake Waxman from Two Guys Talk Sports, wishing you all a good week.